Welcome to Holistic Dog Behavior, the podcast, where we explore the science, emotions, and stories behind dog behavior. I'm Megan, a certified dog behavior consultant. And I'm Bridget, Megan's twin sister. We're here to make understanding your dog easier and more accessible. Join us as we break down complex topics and share practical insights to help you and your dog thrive every step of the way. Before we dive in, a quick note. The information we share on this podcast is meant to be educational and empowering, but it's not a substitute for professional advice tailored to your dog's specific needs. Always consult with a qualified behavior professional or veterinarian if you're dealing with serious behavior or medical concerns. Dogs are individuals, and every journey is unique, just like yours. Hey, Bridge, how's it going?
Hey, Meg, it's going good. How about you?
Pretty good. Feeling a little jittery.
Me too.
Today.
I have some nerves. Definitely. I made stress relief tea that is sitting next to me.
Nice. I just have water, but that should be enough.
Yeah, well, good.
So yeah, today's our first official podcast.
Yeah, I'm so excited.
Yeah, me too. I feel weird, but good.
I do too.
Cool. Well, yeah. So what are we doing today?
So I think what we are going to do is somewhat of an overview for everyone listening who finds us. They can just get kind of a basic overarching explanation on holistic dog behavior, you, and kind of the philosophy behind everything. So are you ready to get started?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, let's start with the basics. What does a holistic approach to dog behavior mean to you?
Yeah, so the name of the business is Holistic Dog Behavior. And that is because my approach is to literally look at the whole dog or the dog as a whole, in terms of everything in their life, and make sure that we're not discounting anything and really prioritize every aspect of their life, their body, their mind. It is, in a sense, it's the actual definition of holistic, which is essentially to look at the whole, not just the part of a thing. Especially the way they use it in the medical world, which is looking at all the factors that could be contributing to a disease rather than just looking at the symptoms of the disease and trying to fix it from there. So essentially what that means in my work is that we look at your dog's history, upbringing, early life experiences, their breed, their age, their gender, the daily routine they have, what their diet and exercise is like, how their bowel movements are. All of those things go into my approach and our investigation into what is going on with your dog's behavior. And that's kind of the beginning of it.
Yes, I feel that. I feel so much that you're holding back on to tell the world.
I know, yeah.
Like in this explanation, which is amazing. I'm excited to like dig deeper on that. So, okay. Next. So why do you think it's important to dig deeper, as you just said, into a dog's life rather than just focusing on stopping the unwanted behavior? Like I think some people find that kind of information first before maybe finding this approach. So yeah, maybe if you could go into like a little deeper explanation on that.
Yeah. So the reason it's best to dig deeper, rather than just focus on that surface level issue, is because a lot of times the issue is being caused by lots of unforeseen things, or like things that are under the surface, like that we can't actually see at in an obvious way. And so because dogs are really complex, and they have so much going on underneath. They are sentient beings. They have emotions and feelings. They can experience pain, emotional and physical pain. And we we really would need to consider all those things when we're talking about what the behavior issue is, to be able to understand, like, okay, well, what is actually the root cause?
Mhm.
The root cause, that phrase is very important in my work too, because we really try to dig down to the root cause and talk about like why that is affecting the dog's behavior,
Mhm.
and addressing that more directly rather than doing kind of like a band-aid fix of stopping the unwanted behavior, but not actually addressing what's causing the behavior.
Mhm.
Um, and so if we don't dig deeper, you risk the behavior coming back because we haven't addressed the root cause of it. So the
Right.
cause is actually still going on. You're just covering it up for a
Right.
while. So you risk coming back. You risk it coming back potentially worse because when we don't address an infection in like in a medical sense, if you don't address an infection, it's probably going to get worse.
Right.
um, the longer you leave it.
Mhm.
um, and it's very similar with behavior, especially because, as a lot of humans can probably relate to, if we bury feelings deep down or we try to hide emotions, they typically erupt bigger later.
Mhm.
Um, and also, it's just important to keep that in mind for our dogs because we want to show them compassion and like empathy and like care for them in a
Mhm.
way that is making sure that they have a good life too. Um,
Right.
and sometimes if we don't figure out that root cause, it can cause them a lot of different types of pain or discomfort or um, give, start to impact their quality of life, which I think is a really big deal.
Yeah. I love
Yeah.
that. I think so too. I hope people listening feel the same way. So many good nuggets in there.
Yeah. I got to be careful not to just keep talking.
No, no, it's wonderful. I kind of have a follow-up question within that topic. Um,
Mhm.
Gets a little more personal. And you can share, or if it feels too personal this time, we don't have to share. But um, are you interested in sharing why you chose this path for yourself and your career?
Yeah, yeah. Again, I probably won't go into it in depth because it would take me forever. But
It'll
yeah,
be a
yeah.
whole episode in its of itself later
Yeah,
on.
like, I'll have to just do, like, a monologue at some point
That sounds
about my
awesome.
life. Um, but yeah, so, um, this is funny because I have this little, like, mantra in my head now with the business,
Mhm.
um, where I say, like, "Leo is my muse."
Yes,
And
Leo.
so, for those who don't know, which is probably everybody, um, unless you're, like, really into looking at the website, um, Leo is my dog. He's 6 years old. He is a giant, 100-pound, um, Catahoula Great Pyrenees mix, um, and he was the reason I started to get into dog behavior, because he was my first dog that I ever got, like, on my own as an adult,
Mhm.
and I had no idea what I was doing,
Mhm.
and I got him from a shelter,
Mhm.
and he was doing great, the first, like, couple months that I had him, again, that's because I didn't really know what to look for.
And
And
that's
then
okay.
yeah, yeah, that is okay. Nobody really knows what to look for.
Yeah.
That's why people go into this career. Um, so I he started to display, um, these behaviors that were scary to me, at the time. It was after a big move that we had. We moved houses. So we left the house that he was in when I first got him and moved to a new house. And he started displaying reactivity and aggressive behaviors towards strangers, human and dog.
Mhm.
When we were out on walks, when we were inside and he could see somebody outside on the street walking by, and all these kinds of things were happening, and they were very concerning to me at the time because I was like, "Oh my god, what is going
Yeah.
on with my dog? Like, is he okay? Am I doing something wrong? Am I bad at what am I bad at taking care of him?" And so I reached out for help to a positive reinforcement trainer in our area. And she helped us help him.
Mhm.
Um, and he's a really intense dude, Leo.
Mhm.
So he is a lifelong case. He's one of the cases where it's like I will always have to manage him and help
Mhm.
him in all kinds of situations. And it was just a that was a realization that she helped us get to as well.
Mhm.
But it also helps me realize that like it's something that I really want to put a lot of effort into for him, for his
Mhm.
sake.
Yeah.
And so I did a deep dive into it myself. I like researched how dog behavior works and like how they learn and what their traumas can be and like got really really into it. And then I was doing so much of it and I loved it so much. I found out that I loved it.
Mhm.
I found it super interesting, really like fascinating to watch dogs,
Mhm.
especially after I learned a lot about dog behavior and dog body language and all the things that I learned with him. And I didn't even get to this point. At the time, I was an engineer,
Mhm.
a mechanical engineer.
Mhm.
And I had been a mechanical engineer for several years at that point. And I was just spending so much time doing dog behavior stuff with Leo. Um, and I loved it so much more than what I was doing with
Yeah.
engineering.
Mhm.
Which I never really loved to begin with, but that's a whole other thing. Not I liked it to a degree, but not as much as
Mhm.
when I started doing dog behavior. And so I ended up just quitting my mechanical engineering job and pursuing this. And it has been a incredible journey. And very reaffirming to me and has helped me and Leo build our relationship even more. Um, and yeah, now I'm several years down the line from that, and starting my own business, which is super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think I got uh, I still monologued a bit there,
No, that's all good. Yeah.
but
And
yeah,
I
and I want to finish off with like I love since I've gotten to work with so many clients at this point now. Um, a huge part of it is just seeing people reconnect with their dogs and find some happiness there again,
Mhm.
and safety and trust, and um, that makes everything worth it too. It's just so cool.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, that's so special, and I think, you know, you've built such a strong bond with him as I can see. Leo's my nephew.
Yeah.
He is, he is it's funny you call him an intense dude because to me, he's just like a big giant marshmallow
With the people he loves, he
with the
absolutely
people he
is.
loves.
Yeah. He's like, if you're in,
Mhm.
I'll die for you.
Yeah, he
That's
is
the intensity,
he is the best.
though.
We
Yeah.
love him so much.
Hmm.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, it makes so much sense. I've known you my whole life. Obviously, we're twins. And, I just will add for people out there that Megan and I both have loved animals since we can remember. But Megan was
Hmm.
always like really, she just had this magic touch with animals whenever we were around them and could just like train our childhood dog without any prior knowledge, and I was like, "What? What is this magic? Give me some."
Oh
But
my God.
I
That's so
have
funny.
just loved, yeah, watching you take this path, and I'm so proud of you and excited that I get to, like, nerd out with you about it because I think behavior and psychology is so cool in humans and animals, so, yes, this is just
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah. I was going to say that we're both really interested in psychology. So I feel like that's going to be such a cool way to connect just you and I, but also to connect with people who want to listen.
Yeah.
Hopefully people want to listen.
Yes.
We'll see.
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I think that that's also one of the things where I think we both it took us a while to find like what felt right to do with our lives.
Yeah.
And not to we've got plenty of life left and then we could find some even cooler stuff, I'm sure. But
Yeah.
or grow with this.
Mhm.
We're not done yet. But I think once we hit psychology somewhere
Mhm.
at each point in our lives, we were like, "Oh, that feels cool."
Yes.
Um,
So cool. Just could spend just pretty much, yeah, all day long dedicating myself and you too probably to looking into
yeah,
all the behavior stuff and
yeah.
psychology. So,
Yeah.
moving on.
Mhm. Yep,
Okay.
sounds good, sounds good.
Um so you kind of mentioned like your relationship with Leo and then before that owner's relationship or pet parents relationships with their dog. And so I was hoping maybe we could touch a little bit more on that. So, like, to you, what does a healthy relationship between a dog and their owner look like? And how do you help owners build trust and understanding with their dogs?
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so and just a really, really quick side note, I interchangeably use owners and pet parents and, like, all those kinds of terms. I don't have any judgment with what people wanna call themselves.
Cool.
I probably will just revert to using the words owners
Okay.
throughout.
Got it.
So but I personally call myself a pet mom, so a dog mom.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. So, yeah, um, typically, when I think of a healthy relationship between a dog and their owner, um, right at the forefront is trust. Trust and then really reciprocity, is a big one too, and which is not one that people think about a lot, I don't think, or at least not in terms of their relationship with their dog.
Mm-hmm.
But having trust with your dog, um, is like of the utmost importance, especially when you're working with a dog who has behavioral issues, because behavioral issues are typically rooted in big, big emotional things. Feelings like fear and anxiety, and those things really need a trusting relationship to begin to heal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that is true for humans and dogs. So much of this is there's lots of parallels that we will talk about throughout this whole journey, I'm sure. So, but then the other side of it too is the reciprocity, and I think that that's really important because a lot of times, especially society in general, when you think of a dog or like you think of a pet dog, you're like, oh, my pet dog should be really obedient to me and should pay attention to me all the time and should always listen to me. Um, I have a problem with that. I have a big problem with that
Yeah.
mindset,
Right.
because if you expect that from your dog, you should your dog is gonna it's valid for your dog to expect that from you. So do you wanna be super obedient to whatever your dog needs and give them your attention all the time whenever they want it? If
Mm.
that's the case, fine. That can be your relationship.
Mm-hmm.
But in my opinion, I think that, um giving your dog a back and forth, like, loving relationship
Mm-hmm.
where you can meet each other's needs, and, like, a big easy example is, attention. Like, a lot of people are like, "Oh, my dog's not paying attention to me," or like, "I really want my dog to always pay attention to me." And one thing that is really important to understand there is, okay, if you want your dog to give you attention, you have to give them attention
I
too.
love that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's a big thing that I think people don't really think about a lot when it
Yeah.
comes to their dog. And it's something that's really important to me, um, with my relationship with any dog,
Mm-hmm.
and something that's really important to me to help educate clients about. And pretty much anyone who will listen to me. uh, if they let me talk, they're gonna hear it. But yeah, so trust and reciprocity are like my two huge ones. And in terms of like what your relationship with your dog should look like, um, it's that two-way street analogy, you know.
Mm-hmm.
The second part of that question was like how do you do this?
Mm-hmm.
Of course there's tons of different ways, depending on the relationship, depending on the type of dog and the personalities involved with the dog and the owner. Um, but honestly, one of the easiest ways to do this is to learn your dog's body language. Um, that's a huge way to begin to understand like what are they asking you
Mm-hmm.
and what are they telling you?
Right.
And can you understand that and um help them with those things? So like even stuff like where um does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. It's almost like it's hard to describe, but when you start to learn like what your dog is telling you based on what their body and their facial expressions are doing and things like that, um you can basically talk to them.
Mhm. And I just made a note,
Mm.
that I feel like this could be a really great, thing to dive deeper into also and, like, dedicate, some
Oh
educational
yes,
materials to for
very much.
people.
Mm.
So sorry,
No,
wasn't
yeah, that it will be yeah, that's something that I really like educating people on,
Yeah, yeah,
um, because sometimes behavior issues can be solved, but just by learning who your dog is,
yeah, exactly.
which
Yeah,
is very cool. So,
cool.
yeah.
Okay,
But yeah, let's move on to the next
okay.
one.
Nice.
Gotta cut
So
myself off.
yeah, no, all good. I mean, there is a follow-up, but we could skip it. It's like, can you give an example of this in your own life? But I feel
Oh,
like
yeah. Oh my
yeah,
god.
okay, cool.
Yeah.
That might help,
So
yeah.
yeah, especially with me and Leo.
Mhm.
He he can basically tell me when he wants to go outside, when he needs water, when he wants to eat,
Yeah.
um, based just literally based on the look he gives me.
Mhm. It's
Um,
so cool to watch.
yeah, it's so cool. I love it so much, and that's those kind of relationships where you're like, "This is like from a movie."
Yeah.
Like like, what's the I should really know some good dog movies, but I'm blanking right now. Like, "Timmy's stuck in the well, like, go get help," and the dog, like, runs goes and gets help because
Yeah,
they
yeah.
understand. Like, obviously, that's not really what's happening, but you really can learn to communicate with your dog,
Yeah. Or, like, the thing
and
like, when you see people train their dog to, like, go get, like, the mail or, like, a beer out of the fridge or whatever, I don't know. Is that's not a good
honestly, in
example.
that case, that can be just straight up training.
Just training, yeah,
I don't
okay.
think that there doesn't have to be an emotional bond. I mean, there should be an emotional
Mhm.
bond, but, like, really what happens when you're learning your dog's body language and you're learning your dog's, like, mannerisms and, like, who they are and, like, what they're trying to say to you. I think it creates a really awesome emotional bond,
Yeah.
too, and then there's just this amazing line of communication all the time that you can keep building too.
Right.
Oh gosh, and we can get into it separately too, but, like, I
Yes.
literally talk to him. I literally talk to Leo. You talk in
Yeah.
a certain way, of course. You don't wanna just, like, blurt out everything stream of consciousness like.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's
And he
there
understands what you're saying, though. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
He can sort of tell me things that he wants
Mhm.
based on his body language too.
Yeah. He's so
Um,
smart. Such a smarty.
lots of dogs have that capability though. It's
Yeah.
so cool.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dogs are
Okay.
smart.
So that's my example,
Perfect.
of that, yeah.
Cool. Yeah, all of this I feel like is gonna need to be like, more episodes on all of these
Expanded.
topics.
Mhm. Mhm.
But again, this is just like our nice overview. So
Yeah.
next is, as I know, as your sister and someone who has actually worked with you in training some certain behavioral issues with our dog, I know that your approach is very individualized.
Mm.
And so, if you could speak more to how do you tailor your plans for each individual dog and family that you work with?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, it really does just come down to the fact that everybody has a different dynamic and every dog is an individual and has their own personality and has their own history. Um, and so that's again where the holistic approach comes in handy because you really have to look at the whole picture. You have to look
Mhm.
at the dynamic between the dog and the owner, the background of the dog, the um like how do they interact as a unit, um and then we also can get into other things like how much capacity does this human have, how much capacity does this dog have, like emotionally, physically, whatever,
Mhm.
because we have to tailor training to fit the unit, the dog and
Mhm.
the owner. Um, Because if we don't, then it's really hard to get any traction or see any progress.
Mhm.
And then that's my fault because I'm not the one. I'm not tailoring it to the dog or the human in a way that they can actually handle. And so that's really important to me too,
Mhm.
is really figuring out like what is your lifestyle like, dog and human? How much can you handle? Um, how much can your dog handle based on what they're dealing with emotionally and behaviorally?
Mhm.
Uh, and how can we make essentially like, yeah, one of my real big goals for everybody that I work with is how can I make training the easiest while still making progress
Mhm.
for your individual situation? Um,
Right.
yeah, so it's just a like you take it's a lot of the holistic approach in terms of like there's so many factors to take into account.
Mhm.
And so we just try to pinpoint what would be best and then meet the needs of the dog and the human as best as possible and then iterate on it when it's not working.
Right. Yeah.
Um so I guess I kind of went into like no, I think that is yeah, that's really like how I individualize things.
Mhm.
And if I went into like much more detail, I'd be talking really deep into techniques and stuff, but
Right.
yeah, that's the main approach that I use.
Mhm. Makes a lot
Mhm.
of sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. From my experience, yeah, you're very like flexible and compassionate about all of it too. So, I think, yeah, you do a great job. So,
Thanks. Thanks, unbiased person.
yes. Exactly. Okay.
Yeah.
So you next you mentioned that health and I think right at the beginning or maybe second question, you kind of touched on health and wellness as being a pretty big part of your approach, or at least initially. Um, how can things like diet or pain affect behavior in ways people may not expect?
Yeah, I love this question because diet and pain in general um are really easy for people to understand if you put it in human terms.
Hmm.
Um, because if you ask them, like, "Hey, so, like, what if you had a stomach ache and somebody asked you to take a test?" You know, like, how easy would that test be? Like, yeah, maybe if depending on how bad the stomach ache was, and depending how well you knew the material, like, it might not be that hard. But if you didn't really know the material and it was a crazy, awful stomach ache where you felt like you needed to rush to the bathroom, you're probably not gonna be able to cope very well or do it very well.
Yeah.
And so that is true for dogs too. And the tricky thing with dogs when we talk about pain, especially, is that they mask pain a lot better than humans do.
That makes me
Um,
sad.
yeah. So a lot of times you don't know the human, even the owner who knows their dog really well, might not notice that they're in pain, especially if they don't know the subtle signals to look for.
Right.
And so a lot of times what happens is the pain gets to the point where they're starting to display behavioral issues, but not displaying the pain. So for instance,
Hmm.
like um a dog has a pulled muscle in the back of their leg, like Remy.
Hmm.
Remy's Bridget's dog, and she has a pulled
Yeah,
muscle.
she does.
Remy does not do this behavior thing, but
Hmm.
what I'm going to use is this example of say a dog has like a pulled muscle in their back leg, and it really hurts, but like they can still walk on it. They're not limping or anything. They can still jump up onto the couch, but like it's still painful. It
Hmm.
twinges certain times. Um, it can be like a dull aching pain other times, that kind of thing. And then say one day say this is your dog and your dog is sitting on the couch and you go and sit next to your dog on the couch on the same cushion and the cushion moves up and down on your and your dog's leg is right on that cushion and your dog growls at you.
Mm.
A lot of people are going to be like, what? I've sat next to you for years and what is going on? Why are you
Right.
growling at me?
Yeah.
um and that's where pain can be really tricky because most people are not going to say, oh my god, are you in pain,
Hmm.
right away.
Hmm.
They're gonna be like, "Oh, like, okay, sorry." Maybe I like either they're gonna get mad and tell them to get off or something, or they might give them space and move away, but then like they'll be like, okay, maybe that was a fluke. If it keeps happening and happening and happening, that's a lot of times where we also run into this slippery slope of, oh, my dog has a behavior issue that we need to address. And they just don't even know anything about the pain. And then so this is again where the root cause and the holistic approach comes into play, because you really need to figure out, we have to get down to the root cause that, oh, your dog is in pain and that's what's causing this
Mhm.
growling. They're not resource guarding the couch.
Yeah.
They're growling because they're in pain whenever you sit next to them or try to pet them on
Yeah.
their leg.
Right.
Um, and but if we go with an approach of, oh, we're gonna do something to stop this growling, um, you're not addressing the actual cause. And so your dog is still in discomfort and pain, and they're potentially being taught something that they don't need to be taught.
Mhm.
And depending on the trainer you get, they're going to be potentially being punished for that
Right.
behavior. And so then essentially you're punishing your dog for being in pain, which is just absolutely unfair.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so that's where pain is huge,
Mhm.
um, in this process. And I always try to screen for that. Um, and make sure I do that with pretty much every case that I have, where I ask questions, clarifying questions, to see if there's any kind of issue that could be happening there that is pain related, as well as having them go to the vet. I have everybody go to the vet pretty much no matter what, even if it's not even if there's not really a sign of any medical issues. You really, when you have a dog with behavior issues, going to the vet is like the number one thing
Mhm.
to
Yeah.
go do right in the beginning. Um, so for anybody who wants a little tip there, that is the
Yeah.
number one thing I would do
Yeah.
always.
There you go. Step number 1.
Yeah. And then just really quick on the diet side, that also plays a huge role, because digestive pain
Mm,
is very similar to regular pain, like other types of pain.
mhm.
Um, and digestive pain or stomach upset um can really easily cause behavioral issues, and then can also cause a lot of discomfort in other parts of the body too. And so that's where looking at the food, does your dog actually like their food? Do they eat their food? How are their poops? Like,
Mhm.
um, all that kind of stuff is also very important to address, in the way that I approach things.
Mhm.
I always include those two things,
Yeah.
um, because if we let them get too far, it can be really unfair to our dogs.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it
Mm.
makes sense. Makes sense. It's what you do with a child, it's what you do with yourself, it's what you do with a
Mhm.
friend or a person. Yeah.
Yeah, a great example is like, um, think of, like, I always try to tell people, like, think of a time where you, like, had a toothache and you had to go to work, or, like, had some kind of pain, like a
Yeah.
headache, a toothache, you broke your finger, like,
Yeah.
and you had to go to work and
Right.
perform at work. You were expected to, like, perform perfectly at work even though you were in pain.
Mhm.
Um, were you super nice to everybody that day? Probably not.
Yeah, it's such a great, example. Nice,
Yeah.
yeah. Mhm,
So that's one of the things where it's a lot easier for humans to understand and relate to,
mhm,
because everyone's had that experience too.
mhm.
Yeah.
Feel like I'm learning so much already.
You know a lot of this
I
too.
do, but it's really fun to hear you talk more in depth about it and just kinda have the floor.
Thanks. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
I have too much fun with this, so
I know this is gonna be fun. But I think now is a really good time to just take a break.
Okay, sounds good.
So we will see you all soon.
All right.
Okay, and we're back. This question I think is so huge and we could spend so much time on, but
Mhm.
hopefully we can just do like a quick overview and dive deeper in another episode or some way. But some people want quick fixes for their behavior problems.
Mhm.
How their dog's behavior problem.
Yeah.
How do you help your clients understand that real change will take time?
Mhm. Yeah. This is a big question,
Exactly.
um, in the industry at large and at the client level.
Yeah.
So, but with clients, or basically, I try to help people understand that like behavioral issues are typically rooted in big feelings and like really strong, um, deep things
Mhm.
like emotions and trauma.
Yeah.
Um, and it takes a lot of time, a lot of processing, things like counter conditioning and desensitization,
Mhm.
um, which are lengthy processes, especially depending on how strong your dog's association with whatever its trigger is.
Mhm.
Um, and trigger meaning what causes them to display the behavior that is concerning
Mhm.
you. Um, and for a dog to learn new associations, um, when when they are rooted in those emotions like fear and stress and anxiety, um, you really have to understand that what we're trying to do with the work that we're doing is we're literally trying to create new brain pathways,
Mhm.
which is not typically what people think
I
about when they talk
love it
about dog
so
training.
much. I love that part.
Yeah, it's like which also I love it. I think
It's
it's freaking
magic.
amazing.
It's
Yes.
science, obviously, but
Like, what? You're creating a new brain pathway? Are you kidding me? Yeah, like, new neurons are forming when
yeah.
we're trying to create new associations, because your dog is literally learning something new. We're trying to get them to learn something new,
Mhm.
um, but it's really, it's a complex process because, your dog already has a negative association to the thing that they're reacting to in a way that concerns you. And that could be like the thing that the way the what I mean to say is if your dog is displaying these things like aggression or anxiety or reactivity to something, um, they already have a negative association to that thing. And so getting them to stop doing that thing is actually teaching them to do something else when they see that thing.
Mhm.
Um, and it's this like really interesting process, but it takes the time it takes. It takes the
Mhm.
time it takes.
Mhm.
It takes going at your dog's pace.
Mhm.
That's it. That's something I say to people over and over again, and they probably hate me for it. Because they're like, "Oh my god, Megan, I know, but it still sucks."
Yeah, and
And
it is
it's
hard,
hard.
but yeah, it's
It's
worth it.
really hard.
It's
Yeah.
worth it. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is, especially like yeah, when you have done all that work and your dog can handle the thing that scared it before.
Mhm.
It is so cool.
Yeah.
It's so cool to see.
Mhm.
Um,
And this is just like a clarifying question from a non-expert enthusiast. So, when you're saying like something they're scared of, like this philosophy you just went over can also apply to like if they're really overexcited by something and then the behavior's coming from like that rather than a negative emotion, it's like this really elevated positive emotion too. Correct?
yeah, well, and it's
Yeah.
like, uh, uh, it depends on how you look at that too, because
Yeah.
in most cases, in my opinion, overexcitement actually is really stressful
Yeah.
for dogs.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yes, yeah, that's what we call like over arousal.
Yeah. Like
Um,
Remy and the neighborhood cats.
yes. Oh my gosh, yes.
My dog Remy, she
Yeah.
thinks that the neighborhood cats are a gang, and I try to tell her they're just nice cats.
She's like, "You don't know, mom.
Yeah.
You don't know what they're planning." Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Over
sorry.
arousal for
Yeah.
sure applies when I'm talking about this stuff. Yeah.
Cool.
Which it gets really complex there too. So like we could also talk about that forever.
Yes.
Um, but yeah, I digress. We'll keep moving. I have
Sounds
a lot
good.
more I could say about this one.
Mhm.
In terms of like why it takes why real change takes time.
Yeah.
But really it's just down to um we have to teach dogs new associations to the things that cause those elevated feelings, those big feelings.
Mhm.
Um, and that just in itself takes time.
Yeah.
Because of the just depending on the dog too, like, so and the strength of the association that they have with the thing, and, it is we owe it to our dogs to give them that time.
Yes.
That's a
Yes.
huge thing.
I agree. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. 'Cause we
Awesome.
yeah. Oh gosh, see, I can't keep going because
You don't have to
we
justify yourself to me.
yeah. We if we brought a dog into our lives, we owe it to them to give them that time and space to figure stuff out, together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally agree. I think that's a really good sentiment to kind of like finish off that question on. And next is okay. How do you help both the dog and owner find more confidence, calm, and connection through your work?
Yeah, so it goes back to trust again.
Hmm.
That's a huge part of it. There's this really cool, um, analogy that a lot of trainers use, and I'm pretty sure it comes from human psychology or, like, it might be from the Gottmans, I'm not sure.
Ah, okay. I'm
I'm
here.
not
I'm here
yeah, I'm not
listening.
100% sure, but, it's the bank account theory.
Okay.
Um, and it's like everything you do and this is why it comes from, like, human relationships, but, like, everything you do with your dog in your relationship with your dog is a deposit or a withdrawal from your bank account with your dog. And the deposits are, like, all the great things, all the things that build your bond, all the things that they love to do, um, like protecting them, feeding them,
Hmm.
taking them for walks, playing with them, cuddling with them, like things that they like to do.
Hmm.
Um, the more of those deposits, the more trust you have in your relationship. Um, and a big part of most positive reinforcement trainers' philosophies, including mine, is we want to build up the history of deposits a ton in
Hmm.
your bank account with your dog. Um, because then you will have built up such a level of trust that when you do have to take a withdrawal, like for instance, like forcing them to go to the vet and get a shot, or like
Hmm.
they have to get their nails trimmed and you just can't do anything about it and they hate you for it, you're not gonna damage the relationship. Not
Yeah.
you might have a little a small withdrawal, but that trust is still so solid.
Yeah.
And then you build it back up after you have to withdraw something.
Right.
Um, and that is a huge way to build confidence with your dog and in your relationship with your dog because you know that you've put in a lot of work to
Hmm.
build that trust and your dog shows it to you.
Hmm.
And that just happens naturally when you give a lot of deposits. Um, and then just like keeping that connection um so strong with those with that huge amount of deposits like happening more often than the withdrawals, much more often than the withdrawals, you build a dog that is more confident, more calm, and more connected to you.
Hmm.
Just inevitably. And that's like like one of the top things that I like to say to people about how do they find more connection and confidence and build sorry how do they find more connection and then build more of that confidence and build more calm because confidence and calm come from trust and connection comes from trust.
Yeah.
So we really just need to build that trust, and there's a lot of different ways to do that depending on the individual dog and owner,
Hmm.
but that is the general building block really.
Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah.
Mm. All right. So we're
Yeah, I
gonna
like that
move
one.
on.
That's a good
Yeah,
one.
that's a fantastic analogy. I mean, oh, so good and so easy to
Hmm.
understand. And I think anyone can really relate to that in their own personal lives, even if it's not with an animal or a pet. Um,
Yeah, I think it does come from a human
yeah,
psychology
right.
thing. I'm not sure who exactly it came from, but yeah.
Makes sense. I think
Yep.
if everybody was like that, it would be wonderful.
Yeah, it would make we'd be more understanding, I think, of each
Yeah.
other. Yeah.
Yeah. That would be great.
Yeah.
All right. So, next we're kind of getting towards the end here. So questions will shift a little bit from that more like emotional, empathetic side, to some of the more technical things.
Yeah.
Actually, for owners struggling with their dog's behavior, what's the first step they can take toward a more holistic approach? Go ahead.
Yeah. Yeah, so, I said this earlier too, and I, uh, will say it again.
Hmm.
Take your dog to your vet. Just get a checkup. That's the
Yeah.
number one first step always.
Hmm. Hmm.
Whether it's a sudden behavior change or whether it's been happening for a long time,
Hmm.
take your dog to the vet.
Yeah.
Get a workup done. Just rule out that something is medically wrong with them that needs to be addressed first. Because even if they do still have a behavioral issue, anything that's medically happening needs to be addressed first. Going back to the pain and discomfort conversation, if your dog's in pain and discomfort, it's really, really hard to learn new things. And you
Hmm.
need to be able to learn new things to create new neural pathways and new brain pathways to make new associations. So that's like my number one thing always. Go
Hmm.
to your vet and get them checked out. Besides that, I actually think that it's really important to ask yourself some questions.
Hmm.
Um, like, what could be causing my dog to have a hard time with this? What has changed in our lives, big or small, that could be difficult for my dog?
Hmm.
Um, any of those, like, just start questioning yourself a little bit, or giving your phrasing yourself, or gosh, just like giving yourself the opportunity to sort of be curious
Yeah.
about what's happening rather than judgmental of yourself or your dog, um, or being super scared. It's okay to be scared when you see big behavior changes too, or even just behaviors that you've seen before but are still scary. It's just try to bring a level of curiosity to sort of figure out like what could be happening here,
Hmm.
and then reach out to a trainer if you're feeling like you don't know how to do it.
Hmm.
You're on your own. I would reach out to a trainer as soon as you start to see a behavioral issue. Um, a behavior consultant is what I do, and that we are trained in more than just like a typical dog trainer,
Hmm.
to deal with these specific behavioral issues too. So
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. Um, it's a complicated thing. It's a complicated thing.
Yeah. Yep.
Hmm.
Mm. Awesome. That makes
Yeah.
a lot of sense. I like that you have those two, at least those two first questions that people can start asking and then an action item.
Mhm.
You know,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
that's really useful. I think it's just such a relief to like hear that as a dog owner. Like, okay, I have some power and
Some action
autonomy.
steps.
Yeah. To
Yeah.
like
Like, this is what I should do.
help this animal that I love.
Yeah. This living, breathing thing that I
Yeah.
love with all my heart, and I don't know
Yeah.
what's happening.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Uh,
get it. I totally get it.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So, oh, I hear Leo,
Leo.
little
Yeah.
baby.
It's UPS. He still has issues with the UPS guy.
Well, let me know if we need
Mhm.
to take a break to give him his training.
No, he is doing okay actually. So,
Good. Yeah. I mean,
yeah.
yeah, I believe it. He has made so many huge strides.
Yeah, that's one of his sticky points.
Poor
And it,
UPS drivers, Remy. he- Today, my
yeah.
dog Remy is really small terrier mix, and she notoriously like never makes a noise. It's kind of strange, but um, some she has started to bark at the UPS guy, and I'm like, that poor guy, like every
Can't
time.
even have the dog who makes no noise not bark
Yeah,
at him.
yeah, but it's just something about like I don't know them. I don't know. You would
Oh,
have
there's a
lots
whole
of theories. Yeah,
oh,
I'm sure.
yes.
We'll talk about that another
Another
time
time.
too. But
Yes.
it was really funny.
Mm,
She did the whole little like she must have been napping and then heard he rang the doorbell for some reason this
mm.
time. And then she saw him out the window after she woke up from her nap and did that like really like like dramatic like howl bark.
Yeah. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, I
Yes.
know you do. Yeah, it's so cute, but like
Yeah.
also I was like, oh my
I
God.
will I will at some point imitate it on a recording, but not today.
Yes.
Yeah. The one thing I will say about the UPS guys is for dogs, you're valid. Puppies. Yeah. It is okay to bark at them. It's
Mm,
weird what they do.
yes. Yeah, it is weird. It is totally. It's like no one
It's
else
not
just walks
helpful.
up to our door.
Yeah. It's not helpful, but I get it. I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
Mhm.
But
Okay.
yes, moving
So,
on.
moving on from our UPS guy conversation.
Mhm, mhm.
Okay, so this is a fun one. I'm excited. So, what is like one, it might be hard to choose one of the most rewarding transformations you've seen when using this approach? And when I
Yeah.
say this approach, like a more holistic approach.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I thought about this before we talked just to see because I it is hard to come up with just like one
Yeah.
example. One of my favorite ones though, was a family who had just had a baby.
Oh.
And when they brought their baby home the first day, they hadn't they tried to introduce their dog and their dog growled at the baby when they let him sniff
Oh.
her. Um
Yeah.
uh, and luckily nothing else happened, but they
Mhm.
were like, "Oh my god, we're not letting him near her,
Mhm.
like, ever again."
Yeah,
And they were
that's
like, "How are we gonna
scary.
live? Like, what like, they both are part of our lives, like, what are we gonna do?" Um, so, yeah, they contacted me, to help
Mm,
because it was really scary, and I totally understood that. I mean, I personally don't have kids, but I like, just the fact that you have these 2 living beings that are super important to you, in a house where you feel like they're incompatible, ugh, that is super
mhm.
stressful.
Yeah.
And having a newborn baby, like, oh my god, that's also
Yeah.
super stressful just all on its own.
Right.
And so, yeah, we had to figure out what was going on, and why he was so stressed. And like that one's not super hard to figure out why he's distressed,
Mhm.
super stressed. There's a big change. He had never seen a baby before, as far as they knew. Um, and small humans are weird to dogs a lot of the time, even if they're infants.
Mhm.
It's a very interesting thing, especially if they've never seen one. Um, so that in terms of like finding the root cause was not that difficult, but we did get down to a root cause of he actually had underlying anxiety that they had never really noticed before.
Mm.
Um, because it didn't really cause any issues
Yeah.
until then. And so he actually ended up having, like, some separation anxiety issues because he had never had to sleep in a separate room from them before.
Mm.
And now they had to keep him in a separate room all the time
Mhm.
because he would scream and whine and bark anytime he heard her, which
Oh,
newborn
wow.
babies cry a lot. So it was just they were exhausted and just having such a struggle. And so we had to address stuff really down to the root cause so that they could actually have lasting change. However, we did work on some mitigation strategies to help them have like quick fixes. I will use
Mhm.
that very loosely. In terms of like here's some strategies to help make life easier
Yeah.
and still also uh achieve what we're trying to do.
It's fascinating how you and other trainers have to really just like find like just, sort through the puzzle.
Yeah, that's what I find so fascinating about it though. It's
Yeah.
like being I always tell people it's like being a little dog detective.
Yes.
I just love
Exactly. A
it.
little dog detective.
Yeah, I just love it so much.
Yeah.
Oh
That's
my god.
awesome.
Yeah. So,
Yes.
but yeah,
For
that is
people who
how
don't know, Megan wanted to also be a spy.
yeah.
We can cut that
When I
out.
was like 10 years old, I was like, yeah, I'm going to be a spy. And then I found out I have anxiety and I could never do that. So,
Oh my god.
so we did a lot of desensitization and counter conditioning to baby sounds and sights. We did sounds first and then we did the sight of her.
Mhm.
And we worked on his ability to be really calm and relaxed when he could hear her and then when he could see her. And in that time, we had their mom actually came. They were very lucky. Her mom came. So the baby's grandma came to stay with them, and she helped out a lot with the separation anxiety portion of
Oh,
the
good.
the
Yeah.
work. He did respond very well to some like quick remedial crate training too, with like lots of fun food puzzles and stuff. So that was we got really lucky there too, because we didn't need a full separation anxiety protocol. So which Bridget knows very well that is extremely difficult.
Yes, we
Um,
do. We'll have, yes,
yeah,
time to
we'll have a
talk about
whole
that too.
yeah whole podcast about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it did take them we also introduced him to the stroller so that they could go on walks together, all of them. So we actually
Oh.
introduced him to the stroller without the baby, then we just introduced him to the stroller with baby sounds from a phone in the stroller, not the real baby.
Yeah.
And we worked all the way up to having the actual baby in the stroller and
Mhm.
walking down the street. And so, it took almost 3 months,
Wow.
which sounds like a crazy amount of time to a lot of people, but it's actually really amazing.
Mhm.
Um,
That is.
yeah, and they are doing so well even now. I mean, I think it's been almost 2 years now. And she's now a toddler, the baby's now a toddler. Um, they play in the same room. He relaxes next to her while she plays. They walk around in the backyard together. They go on regular walks together. And he can just walk right next to her.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah, it's really cool.
Aw.
It is That's one of my favorite ones because it's like a whole family dynamic was there,
Yeah.
and they
Lots at
wanted to
play.
keep everything together. They wanted to keep everybody together, and
Yeah.
they did it.
That's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, it was really cool. So, I it's it just and it does showcase like there's a really going slow at your dog's pace can be so rewarding in the end.
Yeah.
Um, Although I do know that it can be very difficult during the process.
Yeah.
That's
We can.
also part of the holistic approach is
Mhm.
trying to be supportive of the human side too,
Mhm.
and empathetic because it's really hard on the humans. It's really,
Yeah.
really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's something I think that's really stood out to me. I mean, you're my sister, so of course you care so much about me, but I remember there were times where I had anxiety of like, "Oh no, I'm not doing it the way Megan thinks I should, but it's so hard and I need more help." And you were like so supportive and encouraging, and you were like, "If it's not working, we can make adjustments." And I think that's a
Yeah, like
huge part. Yeah.
if it's causing that much stress and pain for the human side to do the training, we're not doing it right either.
Yeah. See, I love that. Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think people need that
Mhm.
in those stressful times. So that's like such a wonderful thing that you did with them. I
Thanks.
think
Yeah, it was
you should recognize that and sit with that. I'm sure you already have, but just want to
yeah,
tell you that.
I try. I try.
We are great at taking compliments.
Yeah. Oh my god.
Okay. Last question, actually. I can't believe it, which is great timing because
Mhm.
we're gonna have to wrap up shortly. But
Mhm.
all right. So if a listener is curious about working with you specifically, what can they expect from the process? And then, secondly, how can they get in touch with you? And if you want, you could touch on what you offer, but we'll see if we have time.
Yeah. Yeah, so working with me basically, um, if you are struggling and you don't know where to go or what to do or what's right for your dog, I would definitely reach out to a certified dog behavior consultant. You do not have to reach out to me, but I'm here
Mhm.
if you
Yes.
want to. I would be really happy to help. And if you did, we'd basically start with an initial assessment where we would get into all the details of your life with your dog. I'll ask lots of questions to help us get to the root cause of that behavior that you're seeing or behaviors.
Hmm.
Um, and we'll talk about like kind of what possibly could be going on there. I'll try to help you learn a little bit more about your dog, especially in the first session that we'll do.
Dog
And we'll,
detective.
yeah. Gosh, I missed out on a great business name there. Oh my god. But yeah, so and then in that same initial assessment, we would talk about next steps, like immediate next steps for I always talk about like safety interventions. Not eliminating because we can't do that right away, but mitigating stress as much as possible. Um lowering stress as much as possible and begin to formulate a plan for moving forward.
Mhm.
Um and then we would basically go into and the way that I like to work is, I don't know if people listening have ever been to a therapist, but like a human therapist, but the way I like to work is similar to that, where you come back when you want to. And you decide how much help you want. Um,
Mhm.
and I am here for whatever you need. Um,
Mhm.
And so, yeah, then so after that initial assessment, we would basically figure out when do you want to come back? When do you want to start working on the next steps? And then we would work in the subsequent sessions on the specific techniques and building your toolbox of like, how do I help my dog? Um, and go through that plan and see how your dog responds and then change it if we need to, throughout the whole process. And again, like I said, there is no timeline for your dog, except for your dogs.
Yeah.
We go at your dog's pace, and that will always be my motto.
So I guess I could just mention that people can find you specifically and more
Oh
about
yeah.
your work at, www.holisticdogbehavior.com,
Yep. Yep.
and your
Yes.
Instagram, which is also holistic dog behavior.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And we're gonna also put those in the show notes.
Yeah, because we have show notes now.
Show notes. And the plan is to also have a support group for people to get
Yes.
get regular support and things like that. Reach out even if you're from afar, and we Megan can help you. But yeah, anything else you want to touch on before we say goodbye?
No, yeah, I think my main reason for doing this is I want to help people help dogs.
Yeah.
And I hope that that comes through. And I hope that people are, I don't know, I hope you guys find it interesting and helpful and educational, um, as we journey through this because I love talking about it.
Yeah. I know. I know, Meg. I know exactly how you feel. And thanks for
Yeah.
letting me be a part of this.
Yeah. I'm so glad you wanted to be.
Yeah. So fun.
Twins doing stuff together.
Yay. Okay. Well, I think that about wraps everything up for this episode. And hopefully you'll hear us again soon.
Yeah. Yeah. Tune in for our next one. Hopefully, we have one. We will. We will.
Awesome.
All right.
Okay.
Bye,
Well,
everybody.
bye. Music for Holistic Dog Behavior, the podcast by Mark Shevlin. Art and design by Studio HMS. Produced by Holistic Dog Behavior. We hope you enjoyed this episode. To learn more, follow us on social media at Holistic Dog Behavior or go to holisticdogbehavior.com.